Hello and welcome to the Manchester is Blue show. You're here with Cloud, and I'm joined by Dan and Tom. We're going to do a little bit of a roundup, all things City, as we normally do. And it's a slow week this week with qualifiers and whatnot. But we have got some big news coming in, which is obviously the contract extensions. Both Ruben Diaz and Ederson have been extended. Two incredible players for City. Very glad to have both of them down now. I believe Diaz is down to 2027 and then Ederson either 2026, 2027. Is that right?
26. Yeah.
Yes.
26. I think, yeah.
Dan, you must have been relieved to hear the news. Obviously, neither of them were looking to leave anytime soon or had their contracts expiring. But it's certainly, for a rather quiet transfer window that we've had, it's a huge positive, and it sort of sends a message to the rest of the squad. Do you think it's correct in saying that? What's your take on it?
Well, I think that's exactly it. I mean, people are saying we've had a quiet transfer window, but for me, we've had a strategically good one, because if you think about it, we hardly played Sergio Aguero last year, and he's obviously gone. We haven't sold any playmakers, but we've signed a ready-made English one, albeit for 100 million, but he's a quality talent in Jack Grealish. And Ferran Torres, for much of his season last season, he came in off the bench for most games. I think it was you, Cloud, that put a stat up about how many games he actually started compared to the appearances. But him playing will be a bit more of a new signing as well, because we're seeing more of him. And I think he started all 4 games, including the Community Shield so far this season. So in terms of the transfers in and out, we've been quiet. But to tie these two down for long-term deals, they're effectively transfers in themselves, because, albeit Ruben Diaz signed last year, the quality of that lad last season, especially in the Champions League, for which he wouldn't play with the tournament, it's quite right we tie him down for even longer and give him a much improved deal, because he's genuinely worth it. That said, same with Ederson. By the end of this current deal, he would have been at City for 9 years.
Yeah.
And he deserves every year, every month, every week. He has been quality. Yeah, he can be a bit of a pain in the ass in terms of releasing the ball sometimes, like he did at Arsenal, put us all back into same old City. We do it the hard way. But both of them, like a new signing, and both deserving the new contracts.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you raised some really good points. When you're a team like City, sometimes it's just as important to tie down your existing talent as bring in new talent. And that was something we also did with John Stones, who was entering the last year of his contract. He's tied down now. Laporte tied a new deal not too long ago, who looks to be a lot happier. Took all the fans out, the players out the tunnel to celebrate with the fans, and they're back in the stadium. Tom, what are your thoughts on it? City tying down Ruben Diaz and Ederson. That's got to be a huge message to the dressing room, and such a good feel all around, hasn't it? Surely.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and this is what you want. Is that as much as it's great to go out and get the best players in the world coming to your club, we've got a lot of the best players in the world at our club currently, and these players are committing to this club for, like we say, the next 5-6 years. In Ederson, we've got, for me, the best keeper. Debate as to whether or not he's the best keeper in the world, but for City, he's certainly the best keeper in the world in the way that we play football. And in Ruben Diaz, we've got one of the top 5 centre backs in the world as well. And these are players that would walk into any other team, but they're players that could go and look for a move to Barcelona, to wherever they want to go. But they're committing the future to City. I think Ederson was on, from what I'm aware, less than 100 grand a week until this contract extension.
About 70, 80, something like that.
Compare that to the fact that De Gea's on like 375 grand a week at United. I think Ederson was due a bit of a pay rise, and like I say, we've got players there that again, when we won the league in 2011, people talked to that backbone of Joe Hart, Vincent Kompany, Yaya Toure, Sergio Aguero, and David Silva, and what have you. And we're maintaining this new backbone of Ederson, Diaz, and De Bruyne, and then whoever may go on to be this striker in the future. And that consistency is what keeps us there or thereabouts every year. We may not have brought in as many players as Chelsea, or we may not have brought in Ronaldo like United, but what we've got is a squad that knows how each other play. I still maintain that this is the most the best atmosphere I've ever seen in a squad at City. This squad just everyone seems to love playing together. They all love to play for one another. They're happy to take minutes on the bench. They're happy to fit in when needed. And you can't buy that unity. You can't buy that sense of camaraderie within the squad. And if we can keep that squad together and then bring in players to make the team better, like Jack Grealish, who seems to fit in perfectly as well, and this talk of potentially Erling Haaland next summer, who again I think fits the mold of what City want in his personality and in the way that he plays football. So there's no point in going out and spending 300-400 million quid on 4 or 5 world-class players. Bring in what we need, which we've done with Jack Grealish. Don't get me wrong, I do still wish we brought a striker in, but what we have done is set ourselves up a clear path for Erling Haaland next summer. And that Chelsea aren't having him because he got Lukaku. United can't afford to have him. Now they're spending £1 million a week on Cristiano Ronaldo. He's not going to go to Barcelona or Real Madrid because they're both skin. Real Madrid want Mbappe. So other than PSG, we are the only team really in the running for Haaland. And whether or not PSG want him remains to be seen.
Yeah,
Bayern potentially, if they get rid of Lewandowski. But as far as the Premier League's concerned, I can't see him going to Liverpool. So we are the only Premier League club now, in my opinion, that can get Erling Haaland next summer. So if he doesn't come to us, don't matter. He's not our issue because he's not playing in the Premier League. And if he does come to us, we piss the league for the next 5 years. So we've set ourselves up perfectly for the future. And I want to just quickly, we'll probably speak about him more later, but just make a point on Ferran Torres is going to be sensational this season. He has got everything that we need from a number 9. The way he played against Arsenal, honestly, his positioning, his movement, his finishing is top notch. And we might not even need to go out and buy a Haaland next summer. Liam Delap gets minutes and fits in. Ferran Torres carries on playing the way he's playing. And we may have saved ourselves 100 million quid in not buying a Ronaldo or not buying a Lukaku or not buying a Harry Kane. So it could prove to be a master stroke in disguise. So as far as I'm concerned, the contract extensions and Jack Grealish thrown in the mix makes for quite a decent transfer window. I don't think could have been better, but I certainly don't think it's been a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of information there to digest. Obviously, everyone's going to be, a bit miffed, really, I think is the appropriate sort of term, that we haven't brought in a striker. But I think what you said, like with that camaraderie, that feeling in the dressing room, that positive energy, I think that's because what City do is they don't go out and buy, say, like Antonio for 50 mil for this year, and then next year go out and buy Haaland. Because if you sign a player like that, someone of his age is going to want a minimum of a 3-year contract. You sign him for 1 year, leave him to rot on the bench for 2 years. He's going to moan. He's going to be negative. Pep's going to feel that way. He's going to be forced to play him. And it brings the overall feel down. I think that's where a lot of clubs, go really, really wrong, in this regard. So there's a lot of credit, really, for, I think, the club standing their ground and not going out and just, panic buying a player, as much as we probably would have loved to have seen him. However, with what you've said, the way that we're going into the new season, I do think it opens up a lot of opportunity. If we had gone out and bought a centre forward, we wouldn't see what we're seeing now from Ferran Torres. There wouldn't be opportunity for players like Liam Delap to come in. So there is that positive to take away from there. I do think Ferran's going to be really good. I felt that ever since he's come to the club, I've had that feeling about a certain player. You look at him and you think, I don't want to put too much pressure on you, because as a young player, coming to a club like City, I think sometimes you don't get the time that you might always need, as you would if you were starting out at, say, like a Bournemouth or somewhere there. And that's no disrespect to Bournemouth. It's just the nature of the game when you're fighting for titles on all fronts. What I do want to talk about is what to expect, really, when we return. We've not really had much of a pre-season. A lot of players aren't going to their, international qualifiers. Edison and Jesus are going to be 2 of those players, namely. And the reason for this is because of COVID protocols and self-isolations, they could potentially miss the game against Leicester. So do you think, with the lack of a pre-season, this extra time we get now to tie things up a little bit is going to help Pep just get these players into top gear? Dan, what are your thoughts? Do you think this really benefits us, especially with players refusing to go to their qualifiers with their team and potentially picking up injuries?
Well, it's always been the case for a number of years. Well, since international friendlies and World Cup qualifiers were thrown into the seasons, I guess. Every manager up and down the country has to plan for this. There's some players that could get injured. There's some players that be fatigued. There's some players that are just not match ready to not had enough rest after an international break. In terms of the players that have been refused or have refused to go, I've seen a report that the FA are potentially going to ban teams from playing them in the first league game or cup game domestically, should those players not go. Whether that'll happen, because you can't really ban a player from playing if they personally decide not to go. I was listening to TalkSport a couple of days ago. Simon Jordan really summed it up perfectly. If it's the player's choice not to go with the international team, then you can't do anything about that. You can't find the player. International isn't in a contract. It's reporting for your country duty, so to speak. So if a player doesn't want to go, there's literally nothing the FA can do. In terms of Pep, the way we play and the way we've started this season, I've noticed a bit more intensity in the way we played, albeit it's only been Norwich and Arsenal and yes, the loss to Spurs. We seem a lot more eager to sit back, take the pressure off, just have a nice slow passing game at the back and then go on the charge. And Ferran Torres has been a massive influence on that, and so has Gabriel Jesus on the right. So I think Pep might be able to manage these international players returning perfectly in terms of the way we play. But that said, there's not many teams in world football that have the squad depth that we have, that we can able to. Some players that haven't even been on international duty can start, and then we can bring said players that have been on international duty into the mix. But we can also mix and match it. B teams, A teams, we've got the lot. For God's sake, we're not that far off from having a bloody C team. So Pep Guardiola is the luckiest manager in the world when it comes to coming back from international breaks.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Tom, I want to touch on something that Dan just said there. How we've got so much depth and things like that. But because we have depth and because we have so many players, we have so many international players specifically. Does that sometimes also? Is it a bit like a double-edged sword, really, where, okay, you've got this huge amount of depth, but you've also got so many players who are playing for their clubs at top level? I want to get your take on that.
Yeah, I think it's something that you expect. I think Jack Grealish has said it today that every single player near enough in this City squad is playing in some form of international football, and the vast majority of them are playing at top nations. And it's not like we've got players playing at nations who are trying to qualify for the World Cup or probably not going to qualify for the World Cup. The vast majority of them are in countries that are gonna qualify for the World Cup and that are gonna win a lot of games. But I think, again, going back to what Dan said about the squad and the depth in the squad and the way we rotate, I think players get enough rest at City to warrant, so that the time that they spend on the pitch internationally isn't as full on as it would be. Say if you've got Bruno Fernandes, who never misses a game for United, he plays. He goes and plays every minute for Portugal. He comes back and he keeps playing. We've got players like, take Jack Grealish, for example. He's played pretty much every game for City so far, or every game I think he's started since he joined. But he's also been brought off in every game, or near enough every game, because we can afford to do that, because we can rotate the squad because of the depth that we've got. So it's not like they're all playing 90 minutes twice a week, then 180 minutes on international duty. They're playing 60 minutes here for City, 70 minutes there, then maybe 60 minutes for England. So, but I also am a big believer in that the momentum is great from as well. If Jack Grealish goes and plays well for England tonight, and then goes and plays well for England in our next game, and then comes back and carries on that form, sometimes going to the international break and not playing or not being called up can halt your progression in the way that you're playing football. So long as these players don't get injured, I'm not overly concerned about them playing minutes for the country. As long as they come back fit, I think it is what it is. But like you say, and the fact that we've got players who are staying back at the Etihad and the training back at the Etihad is also going to be great for him, because we've not got players going halfway across the world to South America or to Asia or to Africa or whatever, apart from I think Mahrez is away with Algeria at the minute. But the vast majority of them are staying sort of local, as local as you can be on international duty, I guess. So that's also great that we've not got players. I mean, we've seen when City go and play in blooming Moscow in the Champions League, they come back and they get beat by Middlesbrough in the FA Cup or whatever you like. It happens, and I know that they say you're footballers, it's part of your job, but they're still humans. You've still got to adapt to these new time zones and come back and everything. So I think it's as good an international break as we could have at this time. I still think the international breaks at the start of the season are rubbish, but that's a debate for another day. But as far as this one's concerned, I'm not overly concerned about the impact it'll have on the squad coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do raise a good point. I mean, we have seen certain players. The one that springs to my mind would be Raheem Sterling, where he has like a little bit of a dip in form, goes to England, scores a hat trick, and you can almost see like the relief just come off his shoulders, and he's like, right, okay, I've proved a point to the critics now, and I can start enjoying my football more. And I think we've seen that a lot in, we talked about Ferran Torres. I think we've seen that a lot in Gabriel Jesus, where he got moved out into that right wing and he had a great game. And you could see like the joy in his face and everything. And, he's saying to Pepsi, no, I want to keep playing right wing. I want to keep playing in this position. Because he's a player who strives for success. And as a centre forward, probably with what we were comparing him to, I think a lot of the criticism was unjustified. And this sort of gives him an opportunity now to show where he is in the squad. And especially for a player like him, I'm pretty sure his contract hasn't been renewed. Does it expire in, I want to say 2023, I believe his contract expires in?
I'll have a look. I'll search it after we talk. June 30th, 2023 it is.
So he could have a bit of a John Stones sort of redemption season. Stones only had another year left when he signed his extension. I mean, we've said this about a lot of players in the past. For Gabby, is it really like a make or break season for him this year? Has he really got to prove it? Otherwise, the club are going to look and be like, okay, 1 year left on your deal. Juventus or Milan are interested. We'll ship you up. Is this his last opportunity really to show what he can do?
I think as far as Jesus is concerned now, I think his days as a striker at City are over. But I think I don't think he'll be concerned by that because I don't think he wants to be a striker. I think he came to City with the expectation of learning from Aguero and then being Aguero's long-term replacement. But he was so young when we signed him and he was coming out of the Brazilian league, which was nowhere near the quality that we've seen in the Premier League. And how often have we seen Brazilians in general come to the Premier League and do well? South Americans, as a rule, don't do well in the Premier League. Like I could probably name on one hand the amount of South American players, Sergio Aguero being obviously one of them, who have come to the Premier League and actually hit the heights that was expected of them. And I think in Jesus, he came and there was a lot of expectation that he'd come in and he's this wonder kid and he's going to do this, that, and the other. And he was almost sort of not forced into the striker role, but through a lack of other options at striker, has been deployed as a striker at City. But I don't think his game's ever suited it. And I think he's probably made that point to Pep Guardiola this summer, saying, even if we do bring in a striker, I don't want to be a striker. I want to play on the right-hand side. And we've seen in the 2 games that he's played there so far, albeit, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We played a Norwich team who are very bad and an Arsenal team who are equally bad. So he's not played that role consistently across a full season yet. But the early signs are so encouraging that he can't be dropped at the minute. I know we rotate a lot, but some players make themselves undroppable. Like Laporte has done at the moment. John Stones is fit and ready to come back into the squad. He starts for England tonight, but you can't drop Laporte or Diaz in the way that they play in, and that's why Stones got into the squad last year, and Jesus is doing that in himself. So I think if he continues to play like this, we'll have him signing an extension in January or around that time, and whether or not that's an extension to then up his market value in the summer if he does want to leave, or whether or not it's an extension. Either way, I think he can play his way into an extension in whatever capacity he wants that to be. And as far as I'm concerned, we don't have a better option on the right at the minute than Gabriel Jesus, because he also showed against Arsenal that while I don't see him as a striker, he's still got that striker's instinct to get in the box and be in the right position to score goals when we need him to as well. So you get the best of both worlds with him. But yeah, I think he could prove to be a very valuable player. And again, another one that if we brought in Harry Kane, say we signed Harry Kane at the start of the summer, I reckon we'd have probably sold Gabriel Jesus. We didn't bring in Harry Kane. As a result, Jesus stayed at the club. And now we're seeing a new Gabriel Jesus that we've not seen before. So another way that somewhat accidentally our lack of business in the transfer window has worked in our favour by showing us what these players can do. And I think Jesus has got got the potential this season to sort of secure himself a regular starting position in the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm not going to get myself, too gassed up at the moment because, again, it was against Norwich, it was against 10-man Arsenal, and these things are very important. But he can only play against what's put in front of him. And every test he's had this season, he's rose to the occasion. So, I do agree with you. At the moment, he's undroppable. We'll see where he's going with that, see what he does, on those big stages. But he does sort of put us in a dilemma because able to play on the wings right now, we have Mahrez, Sterling, Foden, Jack Grealish, Torres, probably one more that I've forgotten as well. But we've got so many options on the wings. And then when I look at centre forwards, I really just see Torres and then, a bunch of false nine options. Bernardo Silva was moved to midfield because he literally couldn't get into that winger spot. And now we've got another winger who's come in and taken up position there. So does this mean another player from the wings has then got to transition to another role? When is Sterling going to get his opportunity, to play during the games now? Is he got to show what he can do from a striker position, which historically he's never done really, that well? What do you think the future really is for, players like Mahrez, who's been playing fantastic, and then, Sterling, who has really struggled to recapture that form, and he's still a phenomenal player. Dan, what are your takes on our, winger situation right now?
Well, the two names you picked out there, Mahrez, we've got to look at Mahrez objectively in terms of he's now, 31? Is he 30, 31? He's entering the twilight years for a winger. He's never really been blessed with pace. His dribbling ability looks like it hasn't disappeared at all. He still seems really key in terms of control, crosses, everything still seems to be there. And the fact that there's a resurgence in Gabriel Jesus, who, to go back to what you were asking, Tom, he has actually been quoted that he wants to be on the right. He's said he's always dreamed of being a right winger. It's a role that he plays for Brazil, and it's a role he's always dreamed to be playing for City. He just never has really had the chance. But to go back to Raheem Sterling, he's the odd one out for me now, because 2 seasons ago, he was hands down City's best player, 30 plus goals in a season, first Englishman to do that since Sean Goethe in 2001. Massive feat that to beat again. But by his standards, he really needs to step up his game now. He is 26, 27. He's entering his prime years, and from what I've seen, he's not exactly getting any better. Realistically, from what I see, Foden, Mahrez, Torres, and Gabriel Jesus getting ahead of him. And that's partly down to what I'm seeing from him. I don't like bashing Sterling because I love Sterling. I think on his day, he is undroppable. But he seems to be struggling to beat men one-on-one unless it's a ball over the top or ball in behind where he just has to run. And we saw it against Leno at the weekend, one-on-one with the keeper. He couldn't even beat one-on-one with the keeper. He couldn't even get a proper shot away, even if it went wide. And he's done that a couple of times now. And I can't remember the last time he scored a goal where it was like a really good goal. And like I said, I don't like bashing the lad, but those 4 players that I mentioned are ahead of him right now, and he really needs to step up his game. I know probably going to get a lot of stick for that, saying, well, come on, he earned his trade a couple of years ago. He played brilliant. We know how good he is. But that's 2 years ago now. If you're a world-class player that we know Sterling is, and all these younger talents are coming through, you're going to have to start sticking to your game. You're going to have to start proving that you deserve a place, because for me, you can forget about Bernardo Silva leaving, you forget about Laporte leaving, you forget about the Cancelos leaving, and Jesus is. Sterling's probably one of the top names on that list of transfers going out.
Can I just quickly add just on that Sterling point? I think what for me holds Sterling back at the moment is the fact that no one really knows what his best position is. I don't think Sterling knows himself what his best position is. You look at the squad now, Jesus is a right winger, Mahrez is a right winger, you've got Varane as a centre forward, you've got Foden who's going to play on the left, and you've got Grealish who's going to play on the left if he plays part of that front three. where Bernardo will play on the right hand side again. If he plays on the part of the front three, he's on the right hand side. But where is Sterling's best position? I don't think anybody really knows. And I think when you're Pep and you're sitting down and you're thinking, right, on the right hand side, I'm going to start Jesus. On the left hand side, I'm going to start Foden. Down the middle, I'm starting Varane. I don't think Sterling comes into the conversation as being the best in any of those three positions. It's helpful as a substitute that he's versatile enough to play on the left, on the right, or through the middle. But in terms of starting, we've got players who are more secure and more solidified in each of those three positions across that forward line that leaves Sterling struggling for me. And that's why I think he's going to struggle to find any consistent game time, because there just is better options in each of the three positions. No player in our front three is as versatile as Sterling, who can play in all three positions as well as Sterling can. But in each position, there's somebody who can play it better than he can at the moment. So unless he hits some sort of goal-scoring run or something like that, I don't see how he forces his way into the starting lineup for an extended period of time. And again, I agree with Dan. I don't want to sit here and slag off Sterling. I still think he's a very, very effective player to have in the squad and a very important player for Manchester City. But I just don't think he's as important as he was 2 years ago. And if someone came in, if Real Madrid turned around tomorrow and said, we'll give you 80 million quid for Sterling, would I say no? Not in a million years. I'd say, have him, sweet. Whereas 2 years ago, if Real Madrid had come in with £100 million bid for Sterling, I'd say, hands off. We can't sell him. He's so important to us. But I just don't think he is as important now as he once was a couple of years ago. And that's just my sort of honest take on the situation.
And to add on to you, Tom, it's not exactly his fault either, really, is it? It's not Pep's fault. It's nobody's fault. I mean, the effort from Sterling is still 110%. He's still running. He's still trying. It's just his composure just doesn't seem to be there. He's gone back to flappy arms Sterling. He just seems to be a bit everywhere rather than just focusing. That season 2 years ago, when he was in the drive, when he was in the mood, undroppable. He knew exactly where he wanted the ball. It's like the goals he scored against Bournemouth a couple of years ago when we won 2-1 in the 95th minute where he curled it in.
Yeah.
You don't think he can do that now, and that's the scary thing. And to go back to what you said about the transfer, that's even scarier, because I completely agree. 2 years ago, 100 million, you'd be adding another 100 on to even make me think I'd want to get rid of him. But 80 million right now, that's
you'd bite their hand up and run, wouldn't you?
Yeah, which is horrible to say because it is Sterling, but at the same time, it is realistic.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great player. And again, we're not trying to bash on him here. We're just trying to find out, what his best position is. And, he's a great player at the club. He's done fantastic. His previous stats speak for themselves, but from a critical standpoint, which is what we have to be here, the topic is current affairs and not ancient history. So we have to look at that. And whenever I look at a squad sheet, I always look at 2 players per position. I look at left wing, I see Grealish, Foden. I look at right wing, I see Mahrez and Jesus now. And then it makes you, wonder for him. And, when I see him like one-on-one in those situations, especially through onto the goalkeeper, he's just taking too many touches again.
Yeah.
It seems like he's panicking. He's rushed. It's like he's got the goal in sight, and then it's like last second he sees a banana peel, and then he's trying to like steer himself out the way with the ball, and then he runs out of space and hits it wide, or the ball goes out. And I feel sorry for him because he still gets into those positions. He gets into those positions more than anybody else does, but he hasn't got the composure to find the net. And you kind of set yourself up for disaster when you find yourself in those positions, because people are always going to talk about what you missed, not what you created yourself. And I'm a big fan of players who create that space for themselves rather than do take-ons, because from an analytical point of view, if I can find space ahead of a defender and I'm through on goal, at no point are you in a position to take that ball from me. If I try and take you on one-on-one, at some point, I need to bring that ball past you. And at some point, you can dispossess me. So that's something he doesn't get enough credit for. But again, where is he going to get that time, to show where he can come into the pitch, show what he can do and say, I deserve to be starting? It's going to be, maybe cup games here, 30 minutes at the end of the game here, or, if we're in the middle of heavy rotation. But he is one of the players that I'm looking at and I'm thinking, I don't know when you're going to get a next game. I genuinely don't know when he's going to get a next game. but it's different from a few years ago. It's a different squad. And now he's got to raise his level possibly higher than what it was before to show that he deserves to be in that starting 11, because I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like our options now are even better than when we had players like Sane at the club, because our players then weren't as polished and, as, I don't like using the term world class, but technically as high level as our players are right now.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think, again, I go back to the versatility in the squad, in the fact that, I mean, I talked about Sterling being versatile, but Bernardo Silva, centre midfield, attacking midfield, right wing. Jack Grealish, left wing, right wing, centre midfield. Kevin De Bruyne, left wing, right wing, attacking midfield, holding midfield. Gundogan, number 6, number 8, number 9 if he wants to be. Jesus, right wing forward. Varane, right wing forward. We've got such quality and such depth, and that's what makes us so unpredictable and hard to play against, is that you just never know. I wrote about it the other day. Pep roulette is incredibly hard to play. Nobody can name a Pep starting 11, and even
I think you're the only one that did.
Starting 11, yeah. Even if you do name your starting 11, you can't name where those 11 players are going to play on the pitch. No. It's just impossible, and that is something which you can buy the best players in the world, you can buy the best striker in the world, but we have got players that we've got. One of the best centre forwards in the world who can also play as one of the best right wings in the world. And having that versatility, having that strength in depth, and having that, again, I go back to the camaraderie in the squad, such a bunch of players who love playing together so much. And that's why we are so good. And I agree with you that I think this might be the strongest squad that we've ever had. And we're sort of a striker away from having the strongest squad ever in the Premier League, like a world-class striker away from having a squad that no other Premier League squad can come close to. So
versatility, I feel like versatility is also our biggest weakness in a way, because you have a player like Sterling who's so versatile, but you have so much squad depth that versatility is now redundant, because if Grealish isn't able to play, well, Foden can play. Well, if Jesus can't play, well, Mahrez can play. So you're almost waiting for 2 players to be unavailable for that position rather than 1. So that versatility you've got is great in another team, but not in a team where, again, I think, Dan, you said this earlier, where, we're not far off from having a C team. We've got a full A team and a full B team. And, so that versatility it's great, but it's not at the top of that priority list.
Yeah. I think one silver lining for Sterling is the rotation, not just game per game, but the rotation during a game. I think that's his silver lining, because it's the way Pep's sort of transitioned, especially last season when we won the title. Nobody knew who the hell the central striker was. We had, especially when Gundogan was in goal scoring form, he was centre forward for a little bit. Then Bernardo Silva was, then Kevin De Bruyne was. Then Sterling was, then Jesus. What nobody knew, and I think that's the outlook Sterling needs to look at. If I can get a good run of games, I can use that versatility within the games to suit me and prove that I deserve a start in each game. And I think that's his only input in terms of making his name first name on the team sheet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, obviously none of us are going to know what the lineup is. We could all take 3 guesses each and still be wrong. But I think our next Premier League game is against Leicester. And I might get some criticism for this. I think Leicester, aside from the Spurs game, is the first real test that we're going to have this season. Norwich were never really, don't get me wrong, they could have beat us, and they have beaten us before. But it was a game that we were massively favourites. Arsenal, especially with the red card, no one was really, doubting us for that game. But Leicester have been a bogey team for us lately. They're a great team. They've got a great manager. And I think this is going to be a real test for us to keep that momentum. I'm a strong believer that you need to beat those teams, those top teams. And Leicester are now a top team. There's that traditional top six that is never a top six anymore, but Leicester have cracked that now, I feel. And I think we really need to establish a strong win against a team like Leicester to say we're retaining our title. Because teams like Chelsea have already gone out and done it. Even against the game at Liverpool, they were massively unlucky, with that, sending off. Was it a red? Was it not a red? It was unfortunate, to say the least, that it bounced off his leg and into his arm. But they've already had those tough games. We've still got those to come. And I think the Leicester game's massively going to be about sending a message. And if Sterling can somehow get himself into that game, even for just 30 minutes, to show what he can do, I think Pep will take note of that. Just
looking at the run of games we've got, I think rotation will be key. We've got Leicester away, as you say. Then we've got RB Leipzig at home. We're at home against Southampton, which could still be a tricky test. Then we've got arguably the toughest game of the lot at home to Wickham. And then we're away at Chelsea. And then 3 days later, away at PSG as well. So,
and then we've got Liverpool. Have we not got Liverpool away after PSG as well?
Liverpool away, yeah, and then at home to Burnley, and then we've got a nice run of fixtures after that. But September might
21 points and smash Wigan.
Well, but come the end of September, it wouldn't surprise me if every first team player, as long as they're fit, has had at least up to about 90 minutes within 2 games. Whatever that also includes Kevin De Bruyne and Phil Foden, who are still coming back from injury, but
we had this same conversation last year about, do you remember the month, what was it, of February, where we had that whole run of games where we had like the worst schedule ever, and then it came to it, we went the whole month unbeaten, we beat everybody, and Cancelo just went on an absolute rampage in midfield.
Fingers crossed.
I think what Dan's saying holds a lot of weight there, in that this is the month for players to say, I am starting in this team. Every single player in that squad is going to play minutes across the course of this month. Starting with Leicester, who I'd put my house on Jamie Vardy scoring because he always does against us. So we've got a 1-goal deficit to begin with, and then we just got to score 2 more than them. But you look at that month, and you look at particularly that week of Chelsea, PSG, Liverpool. That is one of the hardest weeks of football you're going to get. Every single game away from home as well.
Yeah,
we play in arguably the 2 title favourites aside from us. And we've got the best team in the world wedged in amongst that, or the best starting 11 in the world wedged in between the 2. Every single player is going to have to play minutes, and every single player has got the opportunity in those minutes to then make themselves a starter for that more favourable run of fixtures from the end of September through to October. And we talk about Sterling. If Sterling can come in, say Sterling gets a start against Chelsea and scores, and plays again against PSG and scores again, and then he plays against Liverpool and picks up an assist, and then he's in the squad, and that's all you need in this team. And Pep has always been a big advocate of that. As much as he enjoys rotating the squad, and he will continue to rotate the squad, if you play well, he's not going to take you out of the team just because of the rotation purposes. Hence why we'll see Laporte probably start after the international break, and so on and so on. So it's a very big month for City to win games and to put ourselves in a good position to retain the title. But it's also a very big month for the players in the squad who want to lay down a marker, who want to put a point across to Pep that they should be starting in this team. So on both, and throw that into the mix, and that's going to encourage these players to play better, and then put everything together. And we've got a very big month of games that is going to be crucial for both sides of the coin. So, as difficult as it is, I think the players have got the mentality to step up to the challenge. Obviously, we've seen before, we've got the mentality we've got winners in the squad. We've got players who know how to win games, win titles. And I'd rather not have Liverpool, Chelsea and PSG all away in the space of a week. But if any squad can deal with it, and any squad could come out with getting as many points as possible from those 3 games, it is this squad. You give that run of fixtures to Man United, who have 11 decent players and then a stinky bench. They're not winning 3 of those games, but I'm not saying we will win all 3 games, but we've certainly got the capabilities within the squad to do so. So again, it's not a perfect situation, but it's not a disaster either. So you've got to play these games. And if we can get through that run of fixtures with, say we take 7 points from those 3, we win the 2 league games, we get a point away in Paris, and we set up perfectly to win the group, and we're also set up perfectly to kick on in the league and a favourable run of fixtures. So you never know. It could turn out to be a blessing in disguise. We'll have to wait and see how it turns out.
Is it wrong that I'm more fearful of Wigan than I am PSG? Genuinely. I'm not worried about PSG at all.
That's the maddest comment I think you've ever said. PSG have got probably the best team I've ever seen.
No,
You say
come
Wigan?
on. Say again, Dan.
You say Wigan?
Didn't you say we're playing Wigan?
Wickham.
Oh,
I was
okay.
wondering what the hell you.
I'd certainly be more scared of Wigan because I always beat us. But no,
if they're playing us, I'd be scared who the hell's coming up.
This PSG side petrifies me. I won't lie. But the one benefit we've got of playing PSG when we do is that we're not playing them in the semi-finals in March when they've had 6 months to gel. We're playing them in the group stage in September while the team's still getting to know one another, while all these new players are coming in. But you look at that starting 11 and genuinely there is nowhere that they're not good. There is nowhere where they struggle. They've got, for me, I don't think I could name a better front three that I have seen in general in terms of out-and-out quality than Neymar, Messi and Mbappe, because that is just insanely good, insanely good.
I'm going to make a bold prediction now. Guaranteed they'll struggle to get out the group and they'll be knocked out in the first knockout round.
PSG? Struggle to get out of the group? What do you mean? That team is mad. You can't.
Do you know what? I'm going to make a prediction as well. I don't think they score against us in the first game.
No.
At the Etihad, I don't think they score.
I don't think they'll score either. Well, it's all well and good.
And Walker and Diaz looking down at him like, oh,
we can get that same picture recreated.
Walker, like,
that'll be all right. That'll be all right.
It's all well and good having the best players in the world, but when you've got arguably a French icon now who wants to leave the club, Messi, who's in his twilight years, we don't know. I know it's the French league, but we don't know how he's going to fit into that team. Sergio Ramos, who's 35. Yes, he's still a decent centre back, but you're mould into certain things. I think the only decent out-and-out player that's come in that's going to hit the ground running is Donnarumma.
Yeah, I'd agree.
He's not played any minutes for him yet either, has he, Donnarumma?
Well, exactly.
I think they're going to use him as a Champions League keeper this year, and then he'll take the league spot next year when Navas goes wherever.
I just think that team has got, albeit world-class players, far too many egos, far too many self-centered type players, that you're going to see more rattled players in that team than you are going to see cohesion and togetherness like you do at City.
If they can make it work, why I think it'll work, and the basis I think it'll work is that Messi and Neymar know each other. They played together. They're good friends. Neymar and Mbappe know each other. They play together. And Messi and Mbappe are too good to not work together with someone in the mix that they know how to work with. If they can get it to work, they should win everything, because let's be realistic, that team is silly. And the amount of money they're paying, I don't know what their wage bill is, but their wage bill has got to be double anybody else in the Champions League, because I can't imagine that Messi, Neymar and Mbappe themselves are going to be on excess of £1 million a week between the three of them.
I heard it equates to 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps myself.
But no, I mean, like I say, I'd much rather be playing them in the group stage before they've had time to gel and adapt. Yeah. But I think I could see that City and PSG meeting once again in the final in May. I think they are the two teams to beat for me, because I just think we both, in City, you've got a squad that know each other, that play well together, and that will win games. And if PSG can find the right formula for that team, I just don't see how they don't win and how they don't beat any team over two legs. It's so good.
Even when we played them, and they had, Mbappe, Neymar, Di Maria and stuff playing, they never even looked like a threat. And, don't get me wrong, they have got the best front three out of anyone right now. I won't dispute that, but they've also got the best manager at bottling big games.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. He's fell right on his feet, and he at PSG. How on earth Pochettino has ended up in charge of that team it's criminal. That team deserves to be managed by either Pep Guardiola or Sir Alex Ferguson. They're the only two managers in the history of football that should have the rights to manage that team. And the fact that Pochettino's doing it is pretty incredible. How he didn't get sacked for not winning the league as well is kind of mad. So
he's gone from Daniel Levy saying, "Oh, here you go, you've got Danny Rose," to saying, "Oh, would you like Messi?"
Yeah, he's had
I've done a room or two.
But anyway, we're not talking PSG. We're talking Man City. We've got on a little PSG rant here. But yeah, going back to what my point was, I think, yeah, difficult run of fixtures for sure, but a very, very big month for the whole squad to put the foot down, to put a marker down and say, look, Pep, you've got to pick me because I'm too good to not be played. So yeah, fringe players, starting players, everyone's positions on the line. Apart from Ederson, I don't think there's a player in the squad who can safely say that they're undroppable. I only think Ederson is because I don't think Stefan will get enough minutes to be able to dislodge Ederson unless he hits a really bad run of form. Maybe Scott Carson, yeah, you never know, cult hero and everything. But anyone, I mean, Laporte playing like he is, if Diaz hits a bad run of form, we could soon see Laporte and Stones playing together. There's so many, we've got such quality and such depth. I think maybe Zinchenko's guaranteed a spot at left back because of the lack of options elsewhere, but that's...
I feel like Ake might play left back a bit more this season.
Cancelo can play left back as well, so...
As well?
Yeah, but this is the luxury that we have. We've got so many players who are so good that it really is an important month for everyone involved. So it's exciting. This is what we've dreamed of, is watching City play big games week in, week out, and we're still living that dream. So we'll wait and see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, has anyone got anything else they want to bring up?
If we're finishing off, I'll finish off with a completely off the cuff topic, unless there's anything else needed to add to the show.
No, go on. I'm excited.
Just so anybody that is still listening, I know Tom tends to rant, but we like him, so we keep him here. Me and Cloud in particular are getting the Manchester is Blue website back up and running. We're going to try and push as much content out as we can on a regular basis, including the podcasts that we do. Hopefully this one will be the first one we upload there. Do check it out. Do give us a rating. Same as the page. Try and keep in touch with us as best we can. We're going to be pumping out content left, right, and centre. And with the two of us, I'm now the new controversial king in the group, and Cloud's the I can't even think of the word the
voice of reason.
Level-headed.
Yeah, he's also on a few things as well, substances that aren't known to man. So yeah, we are trying to pump out some new content and get the website back up and running on behalf of Tom. So do check us out, Blues, and hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have got any topics you want to see us go through in more detail, drop us a message. Manchester is Blue. Let us know what you'd like to see us cover. But that's it from us today, and we'll see you again soon. Take care, Blues.
Cheers, guys.